From what I understand, there were 2 agents who fired shots. We know one of the agents had 8 years experience, and we know he was a less lethal instructor and had this training. What did the other agent, what was his history? And are they both working right now, or are they on administrative leave?
All agents that were involved in that scene are working, not in Minneapolis, but in other locations. That's for their safety. There's this thing called doxing, and the safety of our employees is very important to us. So we're going to keep those employees safe.
Well, whether Bovino wants it or not, likes it or not, doesn't really matter, because the journalists over at ProPublica have released the names of the 2 Border Patrol agents who were involved in the fatal shooting of American citizen and VA nurse Alex Pretti. Now, here's what we know. They're identified as 43-year-old Jesus Ochoa and 35-year-old Raymundo Gutierrez. We have some more details about them, but before we get to that, Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, I think that you guys are gonna be curious to see who they are. And I think there's a reason why they try to hide things. So we'll get to that in 1 second. And then later, some of the victims of ICE and some of those heartbreaking stories. Yeah.
So ProPublica wanted to also include a note or an explanation for why they decided to publish the identities of these Border Patrol agents. And they write that, "We believe there are few investigations that deserve more sunlight and public scrutiny than this one, in which 2 masked agents fired 10 shots at Pretti as he lay on the ground after being pepper sprayed. The policy of shielding officers' identities, particularly after a public shooting, is a stark departure from standard law enforcement protocols, according to lawmakers, state attorneys general, and former federal officials. Such secrecy, in our view, deprives the public of the most fundamental tool for accountability." And I wholeheartedly agree with the editors over at ProPublica in their reasoning here. Remember, we're talking about Border Patrol agents, we're talking about government workers who are supposed to work for us, the American people. So the fact that they were shielding these individuals' identities is beyond problematic, given the fact that there should be accountability. These are supposed to be public servants. Now, a DHS spokesperson has confirmed that the agents have since been placed on leave. And today, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem announced that every DHS officer who is deployed to Minneapolis specifically will be issued a body cam. She did elaborate on other ICE agents and Border Patrol agents. She says that body-worn cameras are being expanded nationwide as funding becomes available. So it does seem like DHS to some extent is responding to the absolute fury that Americans are feeling over the violence that's been carried out by these Border Patrol and ICE agents. But even after the investigation was moved to the DOJ's Civil Rights Division, there was still a ton of unknown information here, including whether DHS has shared materials such as the body cam footage they have with investigators, whether they're allowing the state to conduct its own investigation. Still unclear about that. We know that initially that they certainly were blocking the state from being able to carry out their own investigation. Here's what we also do know as a result of the reporting from ProPublica. Ochoa is a Border Patrol agent who joined CBP in 2018. Gutierrez joined in 2014 and works for CBP's Office of Field Operations. He is assigned to a special response team which conducts high-risk operations like those of police SWAT units. Records show both men are from South Texas. Ochoa goes by Jesse, graduated from the University of Texas Pan American with a degree in criminal justice, and that's according to his ex-wife, Angelica Ochoa. A longtime resident of the Rio Grande Valley, Ochoa had for years dreamed of working for the Border Patrol and finally landed a job there, she said. So his ex-wife also says that by the time they separated in 2021, Ochoa had become a gun enthusiast, acquiring about 25 rifles, pistols, and shotguns. And that's what we know so far. What do you think, Cenk?
So look, of course, I think it's a third world not to have badges and to cover up your face. We've actually seen it in developing countries where it's a tyrannical government and they don't want any of their secret police to be identified. Now, if you say, no, I kind of like that, maybe we should go backwards, right, and go into that. Well, then do you think that should apply to all the cops? Because you're so worried about the doxing? Should we take away all the badges? Should we take away anything that identifies our cops? Maybe dress them up in burqas or something, ninja outfits. This isn't America, and you know it. So if you're in favor of this, by definition, when you have secret police and hiding their identities, and especially after they've committed a murder, we're still not allowed to know? Or a shooting, you don't think it's a murder, it's a shooting. But yes, of course we're allowed to know, they're public officers. So it's absurd to claim otherwise. And by the way, if you think they did the right thing, then you shouldn't mind. They say, oh, well, they could get harassed if we find out their names. Well, brother, if you got a situation where someone's breaking the law, threatening them, assaulting them, stalking them, let's charge those people, right? So that's not an excuse at all. So now when they talk about the body cams, who's right, who's right? They say, oh, we would have done the body cams, but we just didn't have enough money. You're giving away $50,000 signing bonuses, right?
Exactly.
You're swimming in money. Of course it's not the money. It's that they're finally giving into some little bit of pressure. So they're saying, okay, maybe we'll do body cams. Good. That's a start in the right direction. And I also have an anecdote about who joins ICE, not just these days, but historically, that I want to share with you. But did you?
I just wanted to comment on what you had to say about ICE agents and Border Patrol agents wearing masks and how inappropriate that is. I mean, here's the thing. When you sign up for a job, you know what that job requires of you, right? So this idea that you don't want to be identified as a federal agent because you're worried about harassment is ridiculous to me. And by the way, we've been very consistent on this issue. So this is obviously nowhere near the same as working for Border Patrol or for ICE. But I remember covering a lawsuit that was carried out by a Muslim employee of, I believe it was an Abercrombie and Fitch, right? We had covered that. And she did not want to wear what the job required her to wear, including taking the headdress off. Okay, but you applied for a job where there's a certain look, right? There's a certain way that you're supposed to appear while you're on the store floor doing your thing. And if you're signing up for the job, then it means that you are going to concede to what is required of you in that job. In this case, why are you signing up to be a federal agent, a Border Patrol agent, and you're not gonna wanna identify yourself even though you are accountable to the American people because you're worried about harassment?
Yeah, so I remember covering a different story, also coincidentally about Muslims, but we covered 1,000 of these stories about many different people. So he was working at a grocery store, and he didn't want to touch any of the bacon or the ham products because he says it's against his religion. Well, and then he's like, so they should, whoever has ham products should be forced to go to a different cashier. No, brother, then don't take the job. The cashier has to handle all the products coming through. It's okay, you're a devout Muslim and you don't want to touch ham, wonderful. Go take another job.
For you, yeah,
it's a free country, but you can't enforce that on everybody else. But anyway, it goes to the obvious point of don't take the job if you can't do the job. And in our country, it's public law enforcement. And we get badges and we get faces and we know what our law enforcement officers are doing to us, okay? So that's just part of the job. And the anecdote real quick, Anna, is, so a friend of mine told me this, and of course always take anecdotes with a grain of salt, but so he knew of someone who was trying to get a job as a cop, tried 3-4 times, couldn't get it. So he's like, fine, like, I'll just go to ICE. And ICE is like, come on in, no problem.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, they're on a hiring spree.
Yeah, so like some of these guys are rejected cops, right? So and others are different. Like there's a whole giant range of them, right? But overall, like some of these guys are taking the $50,000 signing bonus, have nothing to do with law enforcement officers. They were mowing lawns a couple of weeks ago, right? So we've got these untrained guys who've now kind of been unleashed in the streets, and they're anonymous because they're a mass. And then even after they commit potential crimes, if the government tells us we can't find out, no, that's secret police and we can't have it in this country.
No, we should not, I don't care where you land on the political spectrum. We should not be in favor of state-sponsored violence, and we should not be, like, it's like secret police. Like, we shouldn't be okay with that. We should live in a free and open society. And if someone does issue threats against federal agents who are identifying themselves, well, then they should be investigated. They should face consequences for doing that. But the idea that the rest of us have to suffer by having, the state carry out, these operations with masked thugs is ridiculous to me.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.